Back in the early 2000s, people still answered unknown phone calls. Especially late at night, there was something different about the world back then. No caller ID apps, no spam filters, no way to instantly know who was on the other side of the line. And for a girl named Melissa Carter, that became the worst mistake of her life. This story happened in the winter of 2002. Melissa was 19 years old and living alone in a tiny apartment complex outside Milwaukee while attending community college. Everybody who knew her described her the same way: quiet, polite, the kind of person who apologized when other people bumped into her. She worked evenings at a video rental store near the highway and usually got home around midnight. Most nights followed the exact same routine: microwave dinner, shower, television, sleep. Simple, predictable. Until the phone calls started. The first call came on a Tuesday night at exactly 3:11 a.m. Melissa was asleep when the phone rang beside her bed. Back then, landline phones sounded violent in the middle of the night. That sharp, electronic ringing that instantly filled the room with panic. Half asleep, she answered it, but nobody spoke. There was only static, soft, crackling static, and very faint breathing. Melissa assumed it was a prank call. She hung up and went back to sleep. Then the phone rang again. 3:11 a.m., same static, same breathing. This time she whispered, "Hello?" For several seconds, nothing happened. Then a young woman's voice quietly said, "Don't let him in." The call disconnected immediately afterward. Melissa reportedly sat awake until sunrise with every light in her apartment turned on. The next morning, she told co-workers about the call. Most of them laughed it off. One guy suggested it was probably some local teenagers messing around. Eventually, Melissa convinced herself that's all it was. But the calls kept coming, every single night, 3:11 a.m. Always static first, then breathing, then the girl's voice. Sometimes the voice repeated the same warning: "Don't let him in." Other nights the girl sounded terrified, crying, whispering things too distorted to fully understand. Melissa began sleeping less and less. Co-workers noticed dark circles forming beneath her eyes. Customers at the video store started asking if she was sick. Then things inside the apartment started changing. Her television would randomly switch channels by itself late at night. Kitchen cabinets appeared open in the morning, and several times, Melissa found her apartment door unlocked after she clearly remembered locking it. At first, she blamed exhaustion, until the night she saw the man outside her building. A tenant from the apartment across the hall later described the incident to police. Around 2:50 a.m., Melissa returned home from work carrying grocery bags. As she walked toward the apartment entrance, she suddenly stopped. A tall man was standing across the street under a flickering street lamp, watching her. The witness said the man looked unusually thin, almost unnaturally thin, and despite the freezing temperature, he wasn't wearing a coat. Melissa hurried inside immediately, but according to the witness, the man smiled as she passed him, then slowly walked toward the apartment building. At exactly 3:11 a.m., Melissa received another phone call. Static, breathing, then the girl's voice. This time the voice sounded frantic. "He's near the door." Melissa later told police she felt genuine fear for the first time that night. Not anxiety, not paranoia, fear. She checked the peephole on her apartment door. At first she saw nothing, then movement. Someone standing just outside the hallway light, too far away to fully see. She called out asking who was there. No response. But the hallway light suddenly flickered, and for one brief second, she saw him clearly. Tall, pale, smiling. The witness across the hall later claimed the man's face looked wrong somehow, like his features didn't fully fit together correctly. Melissa locked herself inside her bedroom and called the police. By the time officers arrived, the hallway was empty. No sign of the man, no forced entry, nothing. One officer reportedly suggested stress and sleep deprivation, might be affecting her judgment. That same officer would later refuse to discuss the case entirely. Over the following week, Melissa's mental state worsened. Friends claimed she constantly looked over her shoulder. She stopped attending classes, stopped answering most phone calls, and eventually disconnected the landline entirely. For one night, everything was quiet. No calls, no static, no breathing. Melissa finally slept. Then at exactly 3:11 the following night, her disconnected phone rang. Police later confirmed the phone line had been physically removed from the wall, but multiple neighbors reported hearing the ringing through the apartment walls. Melissa answered anyway. According to the audio recovered from her apartment answering machine, there was only static for the first 20 seconds. Then the girl's voice whispered, "He's inside now." Melissa screamed. The recording ended immediately afterward. Neighbors heard loud crashing sounds from inside the apartment that night, furniture moving, glass breaking, and someone running. Police arrived 7 minutes later. They found the apartment empty, front door still locked from the inside, bedroom overturned, television on full static, and the disconnected phone resting in the center of the hallway floor. Melissa Carter was never found, but the story didn't end there. 3 months later, another tenant moved into the apartment, a college student named Rebecca Nolan. For the first few weeks, nothing unusual happened. Then one night, Rebecca called building maintenance complaining about strange noises inside the walls. She claimed she kept hearing a woman crying softly at night. Maintenance checked the pipes and found nothing. The following week, Rebecca reported another issue. Her telephone rang every night at exactly 3:11 a.m. Nobody spoke when she answered, only static. 2 days later, Rebecca moved out without explanation. The apartment remained vacant for almost a year after that. Eventually, the building itself was demolished in 2004 due to electrical problems and repeated tenant complaints. At least, that's the official explanation. But several former tenants still insist something else happened there. Because during the demolition, workers reportedly discovered dozens of cassette tapes hidden inside the apartment walls. Every tape contained recordings of late-night phone calls, static, breathing, and a frightened young woman begging somebody not to open the door. The final tape was labeled simply, "Melissa, last call." Nobody knows what happened to that tape after police collected evidence from the site. Officially, it disappeared. But years later, an anonymous upload appeared online from an account that no longer exists. The video itself was only 32 seconds long. Black screen, static audio, and a timestamp blinking in the corner, 3:11 a.m. Then a frightened girl's voice whispered, "If you hear him breathing, pretend you're asleep."